First, I would like to outline a few things pertinent to the current issues affecting U.S. nationals at home and abroad. By all means, if it's a national issue, it's almost always, in my opinion, at minimum, borderline a national security concern. The cohesion behind the recent Clinton Correctional Facility prison breach have spiraled its attentiveness to human fault as reason for 100% of all modern prison breaches across America. It doesn't do the country any good to spend over $25 million in less than 1 month to recapture 2 prisoners fit for body bags, when they of themselves are not personally involved with the escape design plans. They're prisoners, for crying out loud, and by this history, they've been among the best of the worst, known to have helped curtail unrest both among prison guards and inmates themselves alike. Alive today is one of 2 conveniently escapee prisoners. Let's attend to the matter right at its roots, as later on you will understand why this type of national security breach should never have happened, because we are not all humans, prone to make mistakes, especially when attending to jobs where even borderline mistakes can bring cause for national security uneasiness. It cost us over $1 million per day to patch each lead together. This is why I've made it very clear 1 out of the 5 of my campaign policies are a no-nonsense, one strikeout elimination by automation where digitally applicable across all city, state, and municipals. Upgraded programming will almost guarantee these mistakes won't happen anymore. Items such as pens or pencils used in creating reports are, in fact, I've seen it as accomplice citing criminal paraphernalia. New systematic programs will allow for additional body cams. I will introduce smart pens, pencils, smartwatches, and other digital enhanced equipment throughout municipals, standard and mobile. What's gone wrong at Clinton Correctional is not a prison break. It's a prison breach. Call it what it is. Imagine in a matter of hours, the prison breach have echoed a national threat to security as far-reaching as small crime detention centers and national immigration holding facilities, while our now trusted media and state authority executives were backyard brunching in upstate New York as if $1 million per day is fundamentally a joke, so have the esteemed governor sort of belated the layover of quarantining wardens, superintendents, and prison officials at the New York State prisons. Cracking jokes about a volunteer prison seamstress at her tries with inmates and prison guards at the public's expense to the tune of $1 million is unacceptable, while over 1,000 personnels and up to 500 volunteer support teams, along with a host of cadaver dogs, are batting flies and mosquitoes. They've braved the night watch in woods neck-deep brushes nearby and across the country, and should be commended. The risk of continued prison breaches based on human mistake will cost the public an estimated $1 billion in cost for recapturing escapees alive. The Clinton problem team is still somewhat unsuspended. Minor, little investigation is going on. There's never a win-win when there's an internal breach in the prison system, which in retrospect barrels a schismatic undermining of all prisons with quality reputation. Hopefully, the recapture of this one alive will sort of bring revelation to what is obviously left uninterrupted, which is the cornerstones of Clinton's prison innkeepers. To kill an orderly who served the system is not an acceptable single option. Moving on. This concern about the Confederate flag. A young son of an American heritage goes rogue and chooses to promote a trade hate in a known public but peaceful prayer gathering, have also for over 7 years publicly exhibited evidence to kill more than 9 peacekeeping American citizens. It's not simply the act of a racist, though in part racism is that byproduct of our national history. That's for the bad of its corrupt existence. It's all in the past. Today, we have racist and gender discrimination at IBM Corp and across every industrial line in America, and is perfectly legal. Racist concept in theory is protected by the First Amendment. To admit being a racist openly is at minimal relative to your personal verbal opinion on once whether Mr. Michael Jackson was a black man or the O.J. Simpsons were white Americans. Our nation have since grown strong, with more focus on mass murderers, serial killers, ethnic cleansing, and acts of terrorism around the world. Homegrown terrorism and murderers are separate, sometimes individual coexistences which are not protected by a Second or even a First Amendment. It is disheartening to learn of retail giant Walmart and others pulling flags or products bearing the Confederate symbols from store shelves. I personally believe it's safer to sell guns, as it's a right by the Second Amendment. In hindsight, to me, it's an offense to promote mass caricatures on Halloween unless there's that controlled masochistic mechanism in place, or don't sell it. Don't get me wrong. As I love the belated confidence, humor, openness, and freedom seen in the Confederate undergarments on a shirtless guitarist in the middle of Times Square, New York City, it's as bad as it's good, except for a time and its rightful place. As for acts of terrorism, we all must be vigilant in our defensiveness. But when it comes to evil, and evil is imminent, in which case the Charleston Commons wherewithal, we've had more than enough time to thwart or close an embarrassing chapter on this senseless, wayward young American. His idealism are not of Charleston, or of Mississippi, or of West Hollywood, or even Silicon Valley today. The wayward kid has been publishing raw hate for over 7 years publicly. If you forgive this one, you must be prepared to forgive all, past, now, and future. As to the order of where the Confederate flag have been promoted, it's demeaning on one specific term, the preservation of slavery, which we all know in itself it's a political statement which was that economic homogeneity of America. That's in the past. It's natural in all humankind to have abuse dependencies such as the like of luxuries of masters to slavery 150 years ago. Today the terms slavery or subject slavery or slave mastering are substituted by something we call minimum wage or Obamacare subjugation and high impact media propaganda, the CNN, Fox, Al Jazeera America, etc. We like some of its uses, gotten used to it, then we love it, and then at some point in time, we almost want to kill for it. The so-called anchormen are like gods, regardless of what flag flown in front of your porches, windows, or above municipal buildings, over the head. It's in the past. In reality, outside of these senseless murders, some of our national citizens seem to prefer the exact modern slave terminologies. Characteristically, they'll admit it's better than nothing, and also will wait it out to the longest of lines if the trash handling jobs or the wage service job presents itself a career opportunity in today's White House. It won't matter if Jamal holds a Harvard bachelor's degree or Jenny is in fact from the Bronx. It won't matter which Congress leader is racial or whether Joe Biden had a slip of the tongue. As too many of us remain too lazy to fight any longer out of ways of poverty and the likes of welfare system that is riddled with systematic corruption from top to bottom. Take for us an international example. What was the Republic of the Great Soviet Union then, whose public also settled for the less, as it was thought then to be what was right? No one anymore believed in the old rhetoric, eat little in order to live a little longer. Today, even Americans are uneasy in regards to the Russia's global influences solely on the basis of their mass media and flash mob propagandas, even while its own people grow hungry over an obvious economic crisis. It seems some of our modern world prefers minimally some form of enslavement or borderline captivity against one's will. But according to Greece, our founding father of democracy, let that notion be by public choice. Our flag, however, in reflection to government buildings or officials, are one banner that is of stars and stripes and represents the United Trade Union States of all Americans everywhere in the world over. To become American should be the new world order. Let us promote digitally smart Americanization. Modernization of an American human resourcefulness must not miss this prize. If Mr. Donald Trump listened to his father, he'd still be in Brooklyn. Trust me, I'm digitally smart. Believe me when I say it's easier for the world's future to become Americanized. How do I know? For the many intercontinental individuals who've asked me, have I ever been to you? My answers are still the same. They have not changed. As for being a New Yorker, you've already been to me. The synopsis of this fact is visitors disclose more than hosts. Hundreds of years ago, thanks to the British explorers, the world was no longer seen or considered as flat. Today, Americans everywhere can boast no other country or world order holds that prestige. Americans are the leaders to the future of a smarter world and a safer world. Finally, the issue of the recent trade deal, what is called the TPP. If I summarize it, it's a combined nuclear economic disaster for the future of the United Trade Union States, as it's the one example of the rudiments existed in the political bowels of Washington, D.C. over the past 30 years. It's a shame. None of the present officers come into upper and or lower houses, including Mr. John Boehner, with single exception to Ms. Nancy Pelosi, seem to care about what the country will look like economically after the next 20 years. Congress today, in the likes of Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, and embarrassing enough, there's a gentleman they call Mr. Charlie Rangel. Tiny minds are like wayward parents who, instead of planning the family's future, they'll take the wealth and head off to the City of Lights or somewhere there in Las Vegas. Let the young ones fend for themselves. Basically, the present TPP is a long-term trick with short-term benefits set up by our competing international trade masters. It's setting us up for the real world war, which Americans, including the Snowdens and the likes of Ashcroft, will help us to lose long before it really gets started. An economic or trade world war is in fact modern world terror, bent on destroying itself not with guns, subs, fighter jets, drones, or nuclear catastrophe, but with people-on-people crimes. The confusion is building replicas seen by our present everyday lifestyles. I will rescind the TPP as it's forcing the nation to choose between religion or money, which is an answer to each is incorrect, as religion or currency in every economy is determined by the nation's natural human intellectual resourcefulness and not by rebounding effects of great international trade master deals. Our future, unfortunately, for the first time in American congressional history, is hanging by a string. If I may, two strings actually. It's become the popular thing in every candidate's mind and campaign's momentum to disannul, annihilate, if possible, every one of their colleagues in Congress if it deems necessary proof of right to be a better campaign or fundraising strategy. Let me say, this is not my campaign. On this solemn note, let me compliment the Honorary Miss Nancy Pelosi for being the masterful, behind-the-scenes first female president of the United States of America for the past almost 4 years. And on a more solemn note, I would like to commend the best vice president ever existed in the Congress of the United States of America, the Honorable Joe Biden. I must admit, he's become that historical navel string that binds the future of our nation's youth in humbleness, successfulness, equality, and life in harmony. The cornerstone of our congressional future is better anticipated when proper admonition and foreknowledge is given to its present. Thank you, my friend Joe. Let me introduce myself. I'm not unknown. In fact, I'm very well known. Notice the everyday life of 90% of honest Americans, it's just a matter of time when you'll agree that this guy, my life, my outlooks, whims, and futuristic sophistications can be seen both in our nation's greatness and can also be compared even to the very little ones amongst us. Before I surmise my general campaign concept and theory, I thought, to launch a campaign requires borderline minimal two things. They are, one, you've got to have a genuine campaign, you've got to have genuine campaign policies, to which I've outlined 5 new original ones. And number 2, you've got to have the right channel in which to reach the people, hence a digital campaign. But policies first. Hence, my 5 policies, that's the basis for the first 100% digital campaign in American history that's going to create change. Policy number 1, voter registration reformation. Because you don't have to be in the White House overnight. You can vote from right in your living room with the use of any smart device equipped with infrared smart cam technologies. With the use of a simple Retina app, I propose to revolutionize the way votes are cast and counted. I will also set structure in place that's technologically advanced enough to modulate voter identification by creating a 10-tier voter registration system that's going to digitally enhance the expediencies of Americans located abroad. If a society, its population is Americanized enough, they too will be granted access to voter registration effectuating those specific areas influential to those societies. We are a global people. In order to protect Root America, we must adhere to all Americans everywhere. If Snowden wishes to vote, then he's welcome to do so. Also, because once an American, always Americanized. I don't want to surprise you. I'm a regular guy. My favorite song is Lionel Richie's Hello and Julio Iglesias' Hey, and I could sing it if I have to. I love a lot of sports and I'm involved in a lot of things. I'm Michael Foster. I'm running for president. And with your help, I'm going to win strictly through Google's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, and other social media interactive outlets online. I guarantee it. And unlike my opponents, I won't need any donations. Nor would I need to purchase an expensive campaign bus. You can use that money on something else. No leasing of private jets. I won't have to hire an on-the-road specialty chef or celebrity bar or alcohol mixer specialist. I will run a clean and conspicuous and transparent campaign that is profound as one you have never seen before. I will first represent the people of the free world. I will not pattern my campaign around the economic and financial prowess whose individuality are of mountainous proportions in comparison to your vote. And I'll tell you this, their demands are constantly increasing, day after day after day after day. I will focus the general outcome of each goal set forth in this campaign step by step by redirecting it to its source, which is you, the people. Seldom have it ever been noticed the reasons for the constant expansions where the wealthiest gets richer while the less fortunate gets poorer is solely on the basis of denial of acceptance as to the importance of the lower income to middle class. They are the reason for the personal growth of all the wealthiest. Make no mistakes. I will not pass the buck onto subsidiary low-income and non-for-profit organizations set up by the very wealthiest it's supposed to defend against. It's a healthy thing to learn to fish, especially if most people like a little fish-flavored soup every once in a while. Next, my known nonsense elimination by automation. As I remain homebound, I will reboot awareness in municipal chapters across all public service areas, and I will reload new but profound disciplinary application that's going to be self-applied and automated where digitally applicable, because we are not our brother's keeper. nor can we ever be towards one another in this digital age. Third, too long have we taken it for granted that the untethering of the less fortunate to Ivory League statutory figures are solely based on the lack of ability, educationally and otherwise. I will harness, package, and promote even the most remote rhetoric from our nation's indie neighborhoods, as they are also part of our economic future. Systematically, the premonition that he or she is less educated is a retraction to our own personal growth and successes. Again, in a digital age, we are bombarded. We see it from day to day, whether it's in a suburban or your local township. We're bombarded with traffic lights at every stop in our life's travels. And each time the expectation doesn't have to be red, yellow, or go ahead, as there could be problems right ahead you won't want to run into. It's different back then. In the analog age, which I call it, every driver, horseback rider, or of a certain needed to depend on the immediate knowledge and education of the traffic director located at each stop in his or her life's travels. Our infrastructural sectors are bombarded with ifs and whatevers because the architectural source codes are stolen from our young ones, and before we notice, the same technologies are being sold to us from an internationally commercially viable trade master who somewhat convince us that they are 5 times ahead of us in terms of technological but systematic digital applications. The same which are easily transmuted, morphed, or cloned through the simple process of elimination by automation. This laziness must end. It's the reason for low-income Egypt today and the once great scholars of Greece. Human resource numbers do not have to rule. It's the dissemination of the numbers when they are properly automated. Automation of our national human resourcefulness are necessary for a stable infrastructural future. Our archaeological Western family tree is second to the Arabic, Eastern, and Middle Eastern family trees. Even though we are the executor of world military prowess, our farm-like systematic automation of the one thing that's needed to get us back to first place is communication, the power of translation, and the uses of common alphabetical order. It's the edge seen in our brother Governor Christie. He's got this PBS no nonsense but direct approach. It seems captivating, fresh, ripe, and new, but it's not. It's simply indicative of our inner city life that remains the fabric of our nation, in its adopting of all cultures and ethnicities from around the world. Our communities' leaders are betting very low in attempt to garner un-Americanized public representation. In fact, they sound silly when speaking an unparalleled foreign expression. In my opinion, I think it's basically a nemesis in the character of some leaders to promote and spend huge alarming parts of a local city budget in order to complement the we speak your language rhetoric. No other country in the world does this. And it doesn't make America smarter. So, my campaign will not focus on innuendos of Mr. Donald Trump, haberdasheries about the Kardashians, silly late night used to be wannabe talk shows, Jimmy Fallon Gun and others, etc. I'm not trying to be funny, but you know, it's worth your laugh from time to time. Even Larry King is not alive anymore. Interviews on CNN's Sitting Room. I mean, come on. It seems to be the place most politicians seem to find comfort lately. If I were to title the sitting room, I'll call it the resting room, CNN's resting room. Throughout my campaign, anyway, with the use of YouTube and other social media such as Facebook, FaceTime, Periscope, and Twitter, I will launch and relaunch a series of videos as the campaign intensifies, and I will stay true to my name. I'm Michael Foster. It's a digital age, and I'm running for president. And with your help, I'm going to win. I guarantee it. Now, I want to send a special message to what we call the underworld bosses. Again, I'm Michael Foster. I'm running for president, and I'm going to win strictly through the use of social media. I'm not asking you for your donations. I won't be renting an expensive campaign jet, and I won't need your money for a campaign bus, or will I be staffing an unofficial on-the-road cook or bartender. That won't be necessary, as the world needs sincerity in its leaders. I'm not a Puntos Pilate. I'm not a Puntos Pilate, as seen in my colleagues in this vie for presidency. I first believe candidacy should be about personal conduct and not monopoly, transparent and not homogeneous. I'm not a Hollywood star, nor do I have intentions on being one. I'm not a hipster, nor am I into monographic scripture. I am simply me. I'm not a loser, nor is this campaign for presidency a ditch for a quick last result. I've heard of my colleague Carly Fiorina scripted her budget. I mean her thoughts. That she is no longer interested in active membership of the CIA advisory board. Oh, by the way, I won't be needing the CIA's protection during my campaign, as this is going to be the people's campaign. The CIA have enough on their plates, less another bigoted campaign to worry about overly spending taxpayers' dollars on. But in my campaign, I won't be boasting about what I've done for big companies like HP. When some say the true facts after Carly left, and her excuse for being retired, she doubted that HP revenues would have doubled its growth rate and quadrupled its cash flow. Its innovativeness increased and now have doubled the patents Carly was so slow to making progress on. Enough of Carly. She probably have a better chance than Mrs. Clinton, whose new presidential bids are solely based on who she knows in the media, from Barbara Walters to Larry King. Oops, I forgot. Larry King is not live anymore. My point is, the world of Americans are interested in true leadership, and it won't take a pretty campaign bus, big posters, passionate paper play, and hordes of campaign funny money. We might as well put Obama and Michelle on the new US $10 bill. As for our first real currency change, let's not spend time on the Barack Obama's, this HBO BET of American politics. Forget about it, says our friend Chris Christie. As he too, along with the Trump card, were in fact right. Who needs a license or a birth certificate anyway? That doesn't seem to play a part in anything today, including the kinds of persons we are and the people in the world we represent. Our founding brainers and no-brainers were equally confused, but so far Washington is all but bemused in that they seem to hang and swing without a pendulum. I come to you with freshness. I come to you with this freshness that is new. It is not scripted. It is not a rhetoric. This joke about launching a campaign with a CPAC of wolves, what is it? Look here. If you look around what a world presents itself to be today, you'll see so much happening. Take a visit to Times Square. Life in the digital age is obvious, so there's no need to procrastinate. And best around, and beat around the bushes as though outside the TPP will fade anyway. Though it's important, childhood doesn't necessarily qualify as any candidacy, nor who was your first boyfriend or girlfriend or girl, guy friends. These are innuendos of personality traits. Leadership of the free world is about productivity. Productivity traits which are made real from what we see immediately happening around us. Free speech decline and disassociation monopolistically approach to common public service industry, like becoming a postman or inner city police officer, doesn't mean your family must love and have had the history of policing, nor does it mean you should encamp your residual knowledge as if one day as a postman or police officer you will render your services paid for by taxpayers as obtuse as the niche you intercept can possibly stretch without you getting caught on someone's cell phone camera. I'm Michael Foster. I'm running for president, and I don't need Congress to declare my vote, the right wing or the left wing, to accept my candidacy. I will have your vote. I will win your vote, and let the world see that leadership is reasoning with the science of our times. Altogether, what I have to give is what I've struggled for all of my developing life. Construction of your newborn's future, assortment of our correctional emotional desires, and the true life and title of our intuitive God-given spiritual demeanor. I'm not into Snowden tripping or Charlie Hebdo's polygamations. I'm not into reasoning. And with these above premonitions, we all will find that place to get along. And the world will be a better place to live, for better, for worse, for richer, or poorer. It's not written in stone. We can give freedom a chance. This once, for the sake of the unborn and the truths of our own selfishness put to rest. I'm Michael Foster, and I'm running for president. And I'm going to win with the use of YouTube, Facebook, FaceTime, and other social media websites online. God bless you, and God bless all the people of every denomination under this freedom rhetoric. It's not what we see is most important. It's what we don't see to acknowledge and perceive or believe is sometimes most important. I promise, my policy will affect international U.S. related visitors and associates. The notion of reforms voter registration by a simple Retina app on any smart device with live internet or webcam using DDC, digital DNA capture. Anyone, everywhere in the world can cast a vote on issues affecting theirs and a friend, or in general a subject of interest pertaining to lifestyles or any other relevance in business, social, or commerce. Example: a family from India whose complete allowance is devoted to paying tuition towards a daughter enrolled in NYU have the right to vote on issues relating and or effectuating quality of students' life or equities on university educational programs. Similar to marginal ID, state or national, I will introduce a voter right application that will be consistent and will guarantee awards for participation. Such rewards will each earn points towards which can be used for U.S. national privilege. With immediate effect, as best as possible, I will work with opponents in setting up multi-links with specific goals to curtail the disenfranchising of our human intellectual resource capacity, which have been ignored and gone unnoticed for the past 4 decades. While our nation have been busy working on issues of national interest such as women's rights and equality in the workplace, the redesigning of our ethnic social platforms, gay rights, and other geomorphological human relations in urban and metropolitan diasporas, other nations, such as Russia, China, Pakistan, and Turkey, have been quite prudent in harnessing intellectual resources in international trade and the social human society fronts. From Times Square, New York City, the crossroads of the world, it is evident to see a few pluses and minuses specific to the nation and America's global human infrastructure. We've morphed ourselves into a new nation of fabric, food, gadgets, and recreation. Our nation's hospitality industry holds the only exception of productive growth and prosperity, because it's that necessity when nothing else works and everything else seems to work. Rest is relative to the haves and the have-not. For every new hotel room, there's a high percentage of probability for another homeless American abiding in the streets. A digital campaign for equality and opportunity for prosperity will focus on improving human intellectual resources infrastructure. To properly harness the natural intellectual human resource of an ethnically diverse political, social, spiritual, and unite this trade union of states is paramount for the success of all Americans in the now and for the future of its children. 4 decades ago, Procrastinating, in essence, decapitating the intellectual properties of the nation's youth, must end. They cannot do it for themselves. Neither should we expect the fathers of our nation to care enough to advance the resources of theirs and our young ones. Naturally, our society presents the best opportunity for youth development, growth, and prosperity. But let's open these doors first to the citizens of the United Trade States of America. Just as our forefathers and foremothers did effectively to this day of their future, we must now take that mantle and do the same going forward. Let me reiterate in order of priority. Our infrastructure is iconic of four main purposes. 1. Political. 2. Social, spiritual, and trade or our commerce sectors. Our number one political goal should be promoting and keeping the preservation of life. Over time, I will implement a formula of bipartisanship with specific focus on proactive defensiveness on our personal, local to regional and international travel security. I will ask all ruling leaders to focus their infrastructural social resources on pre-kindergarten education through mental and psychological programs to properly ascertain our future strengths or weaknesses. Our nation's parents shouldn't wait until a child is past age of puberty in order to determine he or she is artistically inclined. This approach will convert abnormality in early childhood education and curtail established Ivy League universities from developing fundraising campaigns designed to attract billions of dollars in gifted donations from international trade masters whose hearts are not with the best interests of our developing young ones and the goodwills of any economical and ethnically diverse future United Trade Union. Parts of our social infrastructure have to do also with personal security. With the constant threat of terrorism, ISIS, and homegrown suicidal psychopaths, personal security is no longer equivalent to that of a Starbucks cafe station. Too much, too little, in effect, will become too late. As I've ascertained in my early statement in regards to statewide municipals, it is best not possible to be our brother's keeper. I want to make something very clear to a few of my opponents, Ms. Clinton, Governor Christie, etc., on the issue of gay rights, whereas each humankind have that right and should acquaint oneself with the same but equal rights of others. But it's a national and in some case an international breach of personal security to suggest the nation that it's okay to transmute oneself purely on the basis of special interests publicly or for the financial gain. This is a big mistake, and I have nothing to do with it has nothing to do with personal acceptance or freedom of expression. You don't have to look like Miss Clinton to be presidential. Thirdly, the prosperity of the nation's spirituality must never be taken for granted. It is the one thing that binds this United Trade Union of American states. Spiritual beliefs and understandings is the soul of our United Trade Union. Over the past 2 decades, we've witnessed a drastic decline on the spiritual element of morality, a lesser approach to the birthing rituals of our founding masters, who are the architectural designers of the world's first strongest economy. In God we trust, which signage for the glory of it all is now being printed in smaller fonts by the United States Treasury. For the increased quality relations with our international allies, trade, politics, and religion matters. It's the bark that's necessary for the protection of our economic growth consistency. Second, in respect, or rather echoing my last opponent, who's in my opinion only but lately discovered that he's rich, as it's normal for East Asia and Hong Kong underwriters to maintain corporate executive orders, as it's key to keep managers and CEOs from going on a rogue. Giving himself a relief from the corporate executive chair is certain to do the Trump internal empire no harm. The clownish servitude this is also, in my opinion, this reality television show fortune teller is unable to define the practical meaning of an economic infrastructure versus the social infrastructure, and that of what is most important and exists foremost as the reason for the world economic prowess. Is that indistinguishable factor underlying as our nation's social infrastructure? We are yet to hear a properly formatted plan in scope of projections to which will cover a broken and ignored social infrastructure. Great and successful trade nations of the world, Japan, Hong Kong, Dubai, Paris, and a few others are aware of this known fact in our nation's social infrastructure negative base and have been prudently investing, in essence undermining, heavily into its virtual coexistence. Let's not stray too much. Another of my policy includes characteristically the morphing of certain elements in immigration, specific to the undated virtual immigrant executive orders. They are necessary in order to properly complement this campaign's policy that's dedicated to the infrastructural modernization and mass digitization of the nation's intellectual human resource properties. I'm sure Mr. Donald Trump doesn't mean to insult our Mexican friends and allies or Mr. Jeff Bush, Julie, and with respect, but reality still stands. It's probably safer, better for us to negotiate a form of indentureship with India than to continue with causations and negative trust in 11 guys who's okay with 11 years eating and sleeping in the wet basement of a Burbic restaurant. And for the hell of it, $5.50 cash cow discounts, cervezas, black bean nimble soups. They send $5 home and spend 50 cents. This medium have become almost systematic, whereas it have gained the support handle of an underground magnate in multiple Seatown's employment agency around the country. Mikasa Sukasa. Our Indian indentured allies will build us a bridge in one day. Hence, now that there's a free Wi-Fi in almost every subway station platform, you can expect less of a pesticide problem, as we will subjugate CEOs and executives to tech startups right from a candy store in the subway platform of New York City. Make no mistakes, immigration is an American dream only when it's unconditionally appreciated. This have been the fundamental example of the nation's early immigrants. Our friends and Mexican allies got to get their acts together. We won't need to build a Great Wall or continue to spend billions on this area border patrols. Plus, these preceding methods and evaluations of methods do significantly complement the modernization of our grossly neglected social infrastructures, hospitals, schools, state, local and municipal housing, land access utilities, land access transportation, no more toll roads, and finally land access day and night courthouses and state prison systems. The mass digitization of all intellectual human resource properties will be rendered inadmissible in theory and social in practicality. Social systemization will assist every index finger with the knowledge and understanding how to dispose of and access online information. Welcome to the new Facebook, Twitter, and Google Plus pages. Again, in an effort to boost morale among municipals and build better relationship between the public and the police, I will implement a no-nonsense, one strikeout elimination by automation, wherein it won't be necessary for citizens to make a report on bad policing, as systematically a failed officer would have already turned in his gun and his badge, because an application by automation will discontinue paying an officer to make these kinds of mistakes. Self-elimination by smart reports digitalized through an applicational process. Moving on. Do take notes, as we've just covered 3 of 5 out of my 5 campaign policies. We will stay focused and true to each word, and I guarantee it. Let's not forget, as I've said earlier, I will repeal any existing order or pending order on immigration reforms. Let's get real. There will never be such a thing. However, land access immigrants are a part of our social diaspora. I will put in place a strategy that is proactive, practical, and logistically quantifiable with the same product used for .municipal, .local, .state, and .gov. One strikeout elimination by automation. I will morph borderline to proven immigrant fax with managed products in .edu, .fcc, .ftc, .fda, .irs, and most notably .fec. My point here is simple. Once you've been with a shadow on these national grounds, you have rights, and those rights are governed by our legislation. A citizen, visitor, or denizen should not have to second guess, nor should they be second guessed it, particularly when it comes down to matters concerning civil liberties, our national security, and in some case, our international security. In essence, immigration matters. Obsessive migration should not be any national's expense or responsibility, medical and otherwise. As my fifth agenda to this modern first ever digital campaign, I will over time reform only what's reformable, like policies across administrative lines, our military at home and across international fronts. I will morph parts and parcels of each sector with the National Guard, FEMA, Homeland Security, and USCIS, but not before combined reformation, wherewithal to exclude organizations such as Red Cross, the United Nations, UNICEF, and the IMF, International Monetary Fund, and curtail prior vested interests, special or network interests, and financial support to the more well-structured organization, namely the Salvation Army, the United Methodist and Presbyterian Funds, along with a few other local to international human resource and international disaster relief organization. We are living in a time of great advancement in humanity's mobility. Therefore, when it comes to natural disasters or emergency or complicated accidents involving incidents of multiple fatalities, in a world of condemned Hitlerism, it is a matter of our national concern. Our very coexistence depends on how we manage information leading to mass murders or ethnic cleansing of any source. Let me surmise properly. For you, it's a digital age. I'm Michael Foster. I'm running for president. And with your help, I'm going to win, strictly with the use of Google, YouTube, Periscope, Facebook, Twitter, and other social media interactive outlets. Thank you. God bless you. And this is America's World. Let's take the lead.